Boko is a friendly green diesel that works on Edward's branch line. He takes goods trains between Wellsworth and Brendam docks. One day, Boko was waiting on a siding for Edward to pass. "Pete, good morning," said Edward. "Can't stop, lots to do." Boko watched as Edward left pulling a passenger train and a slow goods. "Poor Edward," said Boko. "More work's been coming here." "Yes, indeed," replied his driver. "We need another engine to help run this branch line." "I wonder," said Boko. "Maybe I could find one." Later, Boko saw Douglas when the Scottish engine came to Wellsworth with a goods train. Boko had an idea. "Can you help me find another engine?" "Where?" asked Douglas. "Where you found Oliver." "You mean on the other railway?" "Yes, I'm looking for an engine for this line," and Boko explained everything. "I'd like to help you, but these days it's only diesels that go there." Then Boko decided, "So that's where I'll go." "Take care," warned Douglas. Later, Boko told his driver all about his plan. "If we take bare slow goods to the other railway, we can search for another engine." "We can try," said Boko's driver. "I'll speak to his driver at once." He came back to the shed shortly. "Good news. Bear has said we can swap jobs with us tonight, and Sir Tom Hat says he'll make home for a new engine if you find one." "Right," said Boko. "We'll find one tonight." That night, Boko took the goods train to the other railway. Darkness fell and the cold wind blew. He left his trucks in a siding and went into a diesel yard. Then he heard something. "Oh, what's that?" But it was only the sounds of the lonely scrapyard. Diesels, silent and still, lined up on guard. "Who are you?" Boko plucked up courage. "I'm a sheds and sidings inspection diesel. Have you any engines in the shed?" "No, none." Boko waved again. "Then what about the siding?" "One. We have one." Boko grew braver still. "Then I'll just go and inspect." A green tender engine with a tall funnel stood sad and alone on a shadowy siding. Her driver was huddled in a cab, keeping her company. "Excuse me," said Boko. "What are you doing here?" The engine looked startled. "Running away. They're going to trap me tomorrow." "Oh no, they're not," said Boko, "because I'm getting you out of here." So Boko quickly coupled up in front of the engine, and off they set, past a bleak and brooding line of diesels. "Where is she going?" "Just down the line," replied Boko, and they rolled quickly away. They went through the yard and across Vickerstown Bridge. "We've done it," whispered Boko. "We're over the border and back on our own railway." They didn't stop until they reached the workshops at Craven's Gate. The Fat Controller was waiting for them. "Well, Boko, when I said I'd give a home to a new engine, I did expect you to actually find one. Well done." He then looked over the steam engine. "A GNR Stirling single," he said to the engine. "I thought you were withdrawn in 1916. The engine then explained that she was withdrawn, but at the last minute she was sent to work on a branch line in the north of England. Until her branch line was closed and ripped up, she was scheduled to be scrapped." "Well, you don't have to worry about that anymore," said the Fat Controller. "We shall mend you and give you a new coat of paint." Boko and his driver were delighted. "You lucky old engine," said the driver. "You've been saved by the North Western Railway." "And my friend Boko. I wouldn't be here if it weren't for Boko." So Boko and Sir Tom Hat left, leaving the engine in the care of the works engineers. But before leaving, the Fat Controller gave the engine a new name: Emily. had been in the works for some time. She had been restored, painted NWR green with red lining, and had the number 12 painted on her tender. Soon her new driver and fireman arrived. They were starting their first day on Sodor too. "Come on, Emily," said the driver. "So Tom Hat wants us to work at Adaption station today." They had set off. Emily loved the journey. It had been a while since she had a roaring fire inside her firebox, and she was enjoying the chance to stretch her wheels. She soon arrived in the yard next to Knapford Station, where she found a small blue tank engine shunting a train of trucks together. "Good morning, I'm Thomas. You must be the new engine we've heard about, the one Boko saved." "That's me, call me Emily." Then they heard a guard's whistle. "Oh, sorry, can't stop. I've got to take these trucks to Toywick and be back in time for my next passenger service." And Thomas rushed away. Then the Fat Controller arrived. "I want you to start with shunting in this yard. Then you can take the 1 o'clock passenger stopping service to Kildane." "Yes, sir," said Emily, and she went to work. The Fat Controller wanted to watch Emily work, but the station master came up to him. "Excuse me, sir. Phone call for you. It's the VAT inspector." "What does he want this time?" he grumbled, and went straight to his office. For the rest of the morning, Emily shunted trucks and arranged goods trains for the other mainline engines. After Emily finished shunting, her driver looked at his watch. "1:45, he said. "We better find you some coaches for your train." In the yard, they found 2 light brown coaches. Now we know that they were Thomas's coaches, Annie and Clarabelle, but Emily and her crew didn't know that yet. "I guess these 2 will have to do," said Emily's driver. Annie and Clarabelle felt insulted. "How dare he say will do?" they whispered to each other. Emily coupled up to the coaches and went to the platform. This was where all the trouble started. On the platforms at Knapford, 2 groups of passengers were waiting. Thomas's passengers on platform 3 and Emily's passengers on platform 2. But when Emily stopped on platform 2 with Annie and Clarabelle, the passengers were confused. "Why is Annie and Clarabelle on the wrong platform?" asked a passenger. "And where's Thomas?" "Must be a last-minute change," said another. "Everyone knows that Annie and Clarabelle only works on Thomas's branch line." So Thomas's passengers climbed aboard the coaches. When the guard blew his whistle, Emily set off for Kildane with Thomas's passengers, leaving her actual passengers behind. The Fat Controller had just finished his phone call when he heard the noise of angry passengers outside his office. He went straight onto platform 2 to find out what was going on. "The 1 o'clock Kildane service still hasn't arrived yet," said a passenger. "That's odd," wondered the Fat Controller. "I thought I heard Emily pass by my office." Just then, a very angry Thomas arrived. "Sir, I must report something to you urgently. Annie and Clarabelle have been stolen." "They're not stolen," said a passenger. "That new green engine took them and your passengers." The Fat Controller put 2 and 2 together. "I think I've just worked out what's happened. Thomas, fetch some coaches for Kildane service. I'll phone Lower Tidmouth and get Emily to come back." Soon Emily returned and backed down onto platform 3. "I'm sorry," said Emily. "We'll talk about this later," said Sir Topham Hatt. "Right now we must help the passengers." So Emily gave the coaches back to Thomas, and the 2 engines set off with their rightful services. Later that night, the Fat Controller spoke to Emily in the sheds. "What happened today wasn't entirely your fault, but your mistake caused confusion and delay. I hope you remember this the next time you take passenger trains." "Yes, sir. Sorry, sir," said Emily. As Sir Topham Hatt went home, Thomas backed into the sheds next to her. "I'm sorry, Thomas," Emily apologised. "I didn't mean to take your coaches. If I knew, I would never have took them." Thomas was still angry, but he quickly changed his mind after seeing how sorry Emily was. "You're forgiven, Emily," he said. "And I'm sorry I was cross. We've all made mistakes when taking passenger trains. I remember the first time I took a train, and I left before they could couple me up to the coaches." Emily tried not to laugh. "Thanks, Thomas. I felt better after that." "No problem," replied Thomas. "And you're more than welcome to help out on my branch line. I'm sure Percy and Toby would love to meet you." And with that, the two new friends talked until they fell asleep. It had been a couple of days since Emily's mishap with Annie and Clarabelle, but Thomas and all the other engines had forgiven her. Well, nearly all of them. "Disgraceful," said Gordon to the other engines in the shed. "Taking Thomas's coaches indeed. Engines don't steal each other's trains. She'll want to steal my express next." The other engines tried to stop him, but Gordon wouldn't listen. Emily sat on a siding next to the sheds. She was trying not to look upset. "But what do you expect from a Stirling single?" he continued. "Look at her. Only 2 driving wheels. Old-fashioned she is. No wonder big express engines like me replaced her. I have 6 driving wheels and never struggle with my trains." "Rubbish," shouted James. "How many times has Edward helped you over your hill?" "I allow Edward to help me. He's earned my respect. Unlike Emily here, you'll never catch me asking a single engine for help." Thankfully, Gordon's driver and fireman came and took Gordon off to work. Edward and Boko spoke kindly to Emily. "Take no notice," Edward said. "He's just jealous of all the attention you've been getting." "Besides, I believe in karma," said Boko. "He'll get what's coming to him, you'll see." "Why don't you come and help on my line today?" suggested Edward. "There's a lot of goods trains you can help with." The Fat Control agreed, and Emily started by double-heading a goods train with Edward to Brendam Docks. After that, they spent the rest of the morning delivering goods trains up and down Edward's branch line, while Boko took care of the passengers. By lunchtime, they nearly completed all the goods work. Just one train left. Edward shunted the train together in Wellsworth Yard. "Would you like some help?" asked Emily. "No thanks," Edward replied. "I can handle this, but if you want, you can shunt the trucks here while I'm gone." "Of course I'll help," said Emily. So Edward took the train to the docks, and Emily shunted trucks in the yard. After she finished, Emily puffed to the water tower for a drink. While her tender was filling up, she heard a noise that sounded like roaring thunder and a loud whistle. "Make way for the express!" It was Gordon thundering through Wellsworth with his express, the Wild Nor'Wester. Emily watched as Gordon passed with 5 coaches. "It looks like a heavy train to me," said Emily's driver. "If he makes it over the hill without help, I'll eat my hat." Meanwhile, Gordon began his approach to his hill. He really didn't want to get stuck this time. "After what I said this morning, I can't afford to stop," Gordon said to himself, and he charged up the hill. Gordon puffed with all his strength, but the coaches were too heavy. Gordon stopped halfway up the hill. "Bother," said Gordon. "James won't let me hear the end of this." "There's only one thing we can do," said Gordon's driver. "We're going to need some help." So they backed Gordon down to the bottom of the hill and stopped next to the signal box. The signaller then phoned Wellsworth Station for help. The station master then went to Emily and her crew. "Gordon's stuck on his hill. We need a banking engine." "Looks like your hat is safe," joked the fireman. "Edward and Boko are down the branch line," said the station master. "Can you give Gordon a push, please?" Emily didn't really want to, but she knew better than to leave passengers abandoned. So she went to find Gordon. They found Gordon still at the signal box at the bottom of the hill. He was very cross. "Not that Stirling single," huffed Gordon. "She'll never be able to push me up the hill." Emily decided to ignore him and buffered up behind Gordon. Then she pushed with all her might, but Gordon didn't move. "Is that the best you can do?" Gordon snorted. "They should have sent a proper engine." Emily pushed harder and harder. Suddenly, Gordon's wheel started to move. Emily kept pushing. Gordon was speechless as they moved slowly up the hill. Suddenly, James appeared from the top of the hill. He saw everything. "Good work, Emily," James called as he passed. Emily huffed and puffed and puffed. But at last, Gordon was at the top of the hill. Gordon was still speechless as he sped down the other side. He didn't say a word for the rest of his journey. "I've done it," cried Emily excitedly, and went back to Wellsworth. That night, Sir Tom Hack came to see Emily in the sheds. "A fine day's work," he said. "Not only in goods train work, but rescuing Gordon. You're just the engine needed on Edward's branch line." "Oh, thank you, sir," said Emily. Now she works on the Wellsworth branch line with Edward and Boko. She helps with both the passenger trains and goods trains. The three of them have become best friends and a great team. And as for Gordon, he was sent to Tidmouth Sheds and told to stay there until he was wanted. But that night, all he heard was James and Henry talking to each other. "Fancy having to be rescued by an old-fashioned engine," teased James. "You must be mistaken," joked Henry. "You'll never catch Gordon asking a single engine for help." Gordon thought they were being silly, but if you ask me, I don't think he'll be rude to Emily again. One morning, the Fat Controller went to see Thomas at Knapford. "I want you to go to Quivensgate's workshop and collect 2 new coaches," he said to the blue tank engine. "New coaches?" pondered Thomas. "Are they for a new service, sir?" "It's a surprise," he said. "Take them straight to Wellsworth." Thomas smiled and set off. Meanwhile, Emily was enjoying working on Edward's branch line and loved her new jobs. There was only one thing she didn't like. Bill and Ben are tank engine twins that work for the China Clay Company and love to play tricks on other engines. For the past couple of days, they've been teasing Emily. "Those two won't stop," Emily said to Boko. "They make jokes about me every time they see me." "Don't worry," said Boko. "I or Edward will speak to them about this." Just then, Henry arrived at the docks and stopped near them both. "Hello, Henry," said Boko. "What are you doing here?" "There's a large order of China clay needed to be delivered to Barrow," said Henry. "So the Fat Controller's asked me to help to collect them." "I can help too," offered Emily, "if you like." "Yes, please," replied Henry. "I don't feel too good and could use the help." "I'll have to look at you later, boy," said his driver. "Right now we need to get your tender refilled." So Henry set off to have his tender refilled with water. But Emily saw that Henry was leaving a puddle of water behind. "I'm worried about Henry," said Emily. "Perhaps his tubes are leaking," replied Boko. "You better check." So Emily went to find Henry. Unfortunately, Bill and Ben had overheard them, and they had a naughty plan. Bill and Ben went straight back to the quarry and spoke to their manager. "Please, sir," said Bill, "Henry wants to take more trucks." "He is bigger," added Ben. The manager agreed and the 2 twins set to work shunting. When Henry reached the quarry later, he found Ben next to a line of 7 trucks. "Are these my trucks?" asked Henry. "Yes," replied Ben. "Couple up to the front of the train. Bill's just bringing your brake van." So Henry coupled up to the front of the train. But what he and his crew didn't see was that Bill shunted the brake van and 7 extra trucks onto his train, making Henry's train twice as long and twice as heavy. Henry started but felt the weight on his coupling. They only got out of the quarry when Henry started to struggle. "Driver, this train is heavy," said Henry. "I'm not surprised," said the fireman, looking back. "Those trains have shunted all the trucks to you." "Oh no," Henry cried. "I don't feel well enough to take all these trucks." "You'll have to, I'm afraid," said his driver. "Maybe we can split the train at Brendam." So Henry chuffed and puffed and pulled his long line of tracks. "You can do it, Henry," encouraged his driver. But it was no use. Henry ground to a halt. Soon Emily arrived. "Are you all right, Henry?" "No," moaned Henry. "I need help, please." "Of course I'll help you," answered Emily. "We should be able to take your train to Wellsworth together." So Emily coupled up to Henry, and the 2 engines pulled the long, heavy train. They soon reached Wellsworth Yard. "Oh, thank you, Emily," wheezed Henry. Just then, they saw the Fat Controller walking up to them. "Yes, well done, Emily," he said. "Thank you, sir." Then he spoke to Henry. "You were brave, Henry," he said. "You weren't well, but you still tried to pull the heavy train. I'm arranged Bear to take your goods train to Barrow, and you'll go straight to the works for repairs." "Thank you, sir," said a very relieved Henry. Later that day, Emily was called back to Wellsworth Yard to see the Fat Controller. She found him on a siding with Thomas and 2 green coaches. "Emily, you have proven yourself to be a very useful engine and a hard worker," said Sir Topham Hatt. "It gives me great pleasure to present you with 2 new coaches." "Thank you, sir," replied Emily. "This should save any future mix-up," joked Thomas, and the 2 friends laughed. Since that day, Emily has worked hard on the Brendam branch line, and she loves her 2 coaches, called Amelia and Eliza. And since that day, she's made sure Bill and Ben will never tease her again. They know better than to mess with Emily now.